All right, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, I'm going to be running you through how I installed all my new stuff. And I'll tell you what, it goes without saying. Look at his face. I'm digging it, man. This stuff is awesome. It looks amazing too. I ended up doing a whole remodel of this garage, and I just collected so much footage. So I'm coming in after the fact just to say that I have to break this up into a couple pieces, guys. So this is going to be part one. First, check this out close up so you know what we're getting into. Yeah, that was an awesome install, and I'm telling you what, you're gonna be digging it. Let's go ahead and get started with part one. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since I made a video. I'm on the mend from a recent surgery. Things are getting better though now. I'm stoked about it. And I got a big pile of stuff over here on the garage floor. I can't wait to start installing everything. But right off the bat, I'm gonna be revamping this area right here. It served me well, I like it a lot, but my vacuum is over here on this side. My pressure washer is all the way over here. I got a new vac setup, which I'm pretty stoked about. Haven't played with it yet, but I'm anxious to get it up on the wall and running. My plan is to put it up here on the wall right here, right next to my pressure washer, so that everything is right here next to the garage door and just easily accessible. I do most of my work out in the driveway, not in the garage here, so I want the maximum amount of utilization out front. I'm gonna put it here, I'm gonna move some shelves around, do a little bit of electrical work, get everything all dialed in. Ah, yeah, right, if it was only that easy. I have to keep picking at it and picking at it until I tear the whole house down. So let's try this one more time. On today's episode, we're gonna be redoing my entire wall in my garage, which is gonna contain my pressure washer, my wall-mounted vac, some shelving. I got plans for future workbench and upper cabinets, the whole bit. I went down a rabbit hole on this one. I always do. Let's talk about if you wanted to do an install of a pressure washer or a wall-mounted vacuum, there's three ways to do it. And there could be more ways, but there's three main ways. One would be to take your existing drywall, cut a hole out like I did here, and then try to go in and do some blocking, mount your stuff, patch your drywall, paint it, and get on with your day. That would have been a 1 or 2 day project. For some reason, I'm just not capable of doing that. Let me explain why. Every time I build something, first I did my pressure washer, but it's been 4 years or so ago now, and then I did my wall-mounted vac, and then I did this and I did that, and it's just been one mini project after another, but there was no big picture plan involved. So when it came time for this one, I cut the hole out and I thought, yeah, let's go ahead and just do it the easy way, the 1 or 2 day install. That would be great. But no, I couldn't do that because I looked down the wall and there was just so many things about the way this garage was built, the way I installed everything. All the installs were great, but they didn't work cohesive as a big master plan. So I decided to go ahead and tear the entire wall down. That's the most invasive way, but it's the way where you can cover the most stuff. I'm gonna be doing all new plumbing, all new electrical, all new studding, all new insulation. All these things needed to be done, and they're just gonna make it phenomenal. Not only is it gonna address everything I wanna do with this current project, but I'm also looking forward into the future and planning and studying things out so that when it comes time to do some future installs, I'm already ready. And that's something I wasn't able to do just by cutting a hole in the wall and throwing it on the wall, even though that would have been a cool video too. And I also want to talk about real quick before I get in any deeper, the third way you can do it. And I did this on an install, it's probably been about 3 years ago now. You can take a piece of plywood, 3/4 inch thick, good quality, good faced plywood, and you can screw it directly to your current wall, and that way you can catch a stud, no problem, and then that enables you to move the equipment around wherever you want it without any issue whatsoever. The only thing with the plywood method is that you'll have, you know, an elevation difference between the plywood and your drywall, and you'll have to address that in some way. Maybe butt the plywood against the corner, butt it up against a cabinet, do some molding. There's all kinds of ways where you can hide it where it doesn't show, and that's a very easy way, probably the easiest way for a DIYer to do it. But again, I just can't seem to do things the easy way. I tore this whole wall down and it turned a couple-day project into a much larger project. But one of the things I wanted to cover today, and this is going to be a longer video, just right off the bat as I'm doing it, I'm telling you, it's not going to be quick. But what I want to discuss today is, I get hundreds of questions over the years. How do you decide where to put the reel? How do you decide where to put the electrical outlets, the water, the bucket filler? How do you decide all that? And I wanted to say that everything revolves around your first initial thing, and that is putting the reel on the wall. Where does the reel go? The reel goes right up against the wall here. You should be in a position where when you're mounting your reel, your arm is somewhat 90 degrees and horizontal, giving you just nice comfort action on the reel. Everything else is, you don't really use it, you're not touching it, you're not, you know, it's not a functioning part that you're using. So mechanically, ergonomically, we want the reel at nice height here. If it's too low, you're like this. If it's too high, you're like that. Now, don't get me wrong, you can do it in those locations if that's what you're left with or that's what you have to do. But ideally, with a whole area like this, we want it done nicely. Now I'm gonna have my hose reel for the pressure washer here, and right next to it, I'm gonna have the hose reel for the vacuum here. Both are gonna be dead center at my perfect height, and both are gonna be the starting point for all the measurements that I'm getting ready to go over. All right, so as I'm editing the video, I kinda decided this would be a good time to jump in. I know all this, whoa, there it is. Matter of fact, there's the finished product. How sick does that look? I'm crazy amped about it, and I'm sure when you get your system on your wall, you're gonna be too. But doing the layout, it's not difficult by any means, and if you put the time and energy in, you'll get it right. A lot of times when you're doing it though, you're moving stuff around, drilling a bunch of holes in the wall, and there's a little frustration associated with it. So of all the different installs I've done, I started making my own architectural plans, you know, for the pressure washer and the vacuum kits, and I put it all together and I made it step by step to try to help you guys out, and I'm gonna offer that on the website. I'll leave a link here. I'll also have the code you can scan, take you there. It supports the channel, I appreciate it, and hopefully it'll make this awesome and easy for you guys. And that's all I got to say. Let's get back to the video. Yeah. Now that we figured out a good, comfortable, ergonomic height for the hose reel, for me that checks in at approximately, so let's say about 48.5 for me. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take my level, put it across the studs here, make sure it's level, and go ahead and mark it all the way across. That's gonna give us that nice center point that's gonna be the foundation for everything we're gonna do from this point on. Now that we know the exact height that we wanna mount the pressure washer hose reel, it's time to start thinking about where we're gonna put the blocking in between the studs so that we can anchor this thing into some good strong meat. It gets heavy when it's full of water, all this stuff's heavy. We need a good solid anchor point, and drywall anchors isn't gonna do it. So we're gonna use blocking, and I'm gonna describe to you how I came up with this blocking situation. Now first off, let's go off the corner here. My corner to center is roughly about 27 inches. That gives me enough room for my Tesla wall charger, my water deionizing kit that I have down the bottom here. It's just gonna give me enough room for that. You can move yours around however you want. It's irrelevant how far from the corner, as long as there's plenty of room. Next, let's talk about the actual pressure washer hose reel. This one measures in at about 9.5 by 6. So let's go 9.5 off the center would be 4 3/4, and you can see at 9.5, I'm directly into the 2x6 blocking that I have here, and the 0 mark is right into this 2x4, and I got plenty of overrun should I want to go left or right. So you can see here that this required blocking, 2x6 on its side, 2x4s turned sideways, all punch through the side of this 2x4, screwed together. Use a good solid heavyweight screw or a framing nailer, and make sure when you're done this thing is solid. We want it to be super rock solid. We don't want any concerns with that. Now I have plenty of room to move the reel left or right, and in terms of up or down, it's 6 inches, so 3 takes us to 6, which is right at this 2x4, and the 0 marks right at that 2x4. Again, giving us 1.5 inches in each direction. That's more than enough for me. I know exactly where they're gonna go, but if you're unsure and you want a little bit more wiggle room, then I would consider extra blocking so that you have more room to move it around. Now that we've fully mapped out exactly where the hose reel is gonna go, there's no question about that. It's time to lay everything down on the garage floor and sort out all the spacing, all the equipment, the shelf, the pressure washer. And we're gonna do the same thing with the vac and the vac hose reel. Make sure you're completely happy with it. All your spacing, everything. Look at it from multiple angles just to make sure that there's nothing you wanna change, and double check the measurements, do everything you have to do, because the next step is to kind of transpose this up onto the wall. We're going to use all that layout and all those measurements to develop vertically where we're going to put everything. Where are we going to put the shelf? Where are we going to put the electrical? Where are we going to put the plumbing? Everything's kind of going to be based on this layout on the floor, so take your time and do it right. Let's move on to the pressure washer shelf. Now the version that I use is about 23 inches on the mounting holes. Now that puts us at about 11.5 to 23, which is right there. So you can see the 0 mark again, starting at the 2x4, and the 23 starting at the 2x4. Now that we've figured out exactly where our shelf is gonna go in terms of horizontally, it's time to start thinking about vertically. How high do we need the blocking? How low do we need the blocking? Now, based on the layout on our floor here, we've determined that the center of the pressure washer reel to the top of the shelf is a minimum of 7 inches, probably more like 8. You'll have to get that gap figured out that's best suited for you. But we'll go ahead and we'll measure and mark 7 inches here on the wall. That's gonna give us a place to put our shelf. We'll put it up at the 7-inch mark, and you can see at the 7-inch mark that there is plenty of space all around on these brackets to make sure that those lag bolts are gonna get deep into the meat. And yeah. Deep into the meat of the wood. Now, the question would be, why did I choose to run them so high if the brackets don't go above the 7-inch mark? I had these scraps laying around. I figured I'd go ahead and roll this 2x6 on the side, put an additional floor-to-ceiling stud in there, just so this is rock solid. It just depends on your layout. I decided to sister a few 2x4s here because that made the most sense, but you don't want to sister too far out because you do a couple of them on top of each other and it gets pretty weak. So just keep that in mind. Also, another reason why you want to put extra in terms of blocking, once we put this drywall on here, all this is going to be disappeared. The only way you're going to know exactly where this wood is either your memory, or I'll show you a trick later in a video where we take a picture of the wall with all the measurements on it. That way, once the drywall's up, we can look at our picture, pull our measurements, and we'll know exactly where it is. But you still want a little bit of buffer. You're not that good, man. You don't want to be on a razor's edge and then run your lag bolt in and miss your stud. So just be a little conservative in terms of how much blocking you have, and you're going to be just fine. Now let's talk about the electrical plug that I put in here. This is a 20 amp dedicated service, and what I mean by that is it has a 20 amp breaker, has 12 2-wire coming over with no other connections to it whatsoever. It's running directly to this outlet. I can turn off this service independently from everything else in the house. So if I choose to shut off my pressure washer at the breaker panel, nothing else is interrupted by doing that. Now I want to lock in the exact location of my electrical outlet. I chose in this case to run an additional 2x4 from the ceiling down to my blocking, tied it all in nice and tight, and I designed it so that the center of the electrical outlet would be dead center with my pressure washer reel. I really care about the symmetry. I want it to look nice. So that kind of takes care of the left to right. Let's talk about the up and down. I could put this wherever I wanted, but my goal was to have it hidden behind the pressure washer. So I went ahead and measured the Kranzle pressure washer, and that's about 11-inch height. So I'm gonna measure 10 inches and mark it, because 10 inches is gonna give us, be down below the height of the Kranzle, and it's gonna make it hidden. Next, the thing I wanna check is to make sure that at this particular height, that the electrical cord doesn't have any radical bends in it. I want it to be a nice smooth bend, nothing real radical, and it fits very easily. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this down even a little bit more, probably about 1 inch lower, so it's guaranteed to be hidden. We'll hammer that in, and that's how we got the electrical outlet location. And I'm certain it's gonna be hidden behind the pressure washer, and that's what I was going for. Now it's time to talk about the plumbing. Getting those measurements correct makes a big difference. Once you put all these parts and pieces together, especially with the bucket filler. We look at this, there's a lot of parts and pieces, the hose, the end piece on there. We want it to go comfortably into the bucket and below the bucket rim so that it's spraying nicely into the bucket. I don't want it so deep that I'm fighting with it, and I don't want it over the top where it's spraying all over the garage. I want it to be able to go in and out super easy. To get the right measurement is key for that. Now let's move on up to the service that comes to the pressure washer. In order to get these hoses to lay nice, get those nice, flat corners and just everything lined up perfectly, this bib has to be in the correct location. Again, we need to get that measured out perfectly so that we can get everything to look nice. If this bib was over here, that hose would be all gnarly looking and bending all over the place. If it was too high, too low, you get the idea. So with the plumbing, take your time, get those measurements correct so that so everything lays there perfectly and you're not fighting with it and it doesn't look disorganized. Let's move over to the vacuum and the vacuum hose reel. The vacuum hose reel measures at 15 by 6 inches. Now, off my center line here, 15 would be 7.5, and you can see 15 puts me dead center here, and the 0 mark puts me dead center in this stud here. So I went 2x6 blocking with the 2x4 top and bottom into these 2 bays. Don't be afraid to go into the next bay if you have to get a good lag bolt on there. You don't want to be barely nipping the corner on a 2x4. It's going to weaken your whole system. So make sure that you go beyond the last lag bolt, even if it means going into the next bay or doing some sort of blocking like I did custom to make it work for you. So that takes care of the left to right. We got plenty of wiggle room here. We can go any direction we want should we feel fit that we need a little bit more space. And then let's go top to bottom. Again, we already did this on the other side. It's the same. 3 inches puts us into the 2x4, 2x4. That gives us 1.5 inch wiggle room up and down as well. Now let's talk about the vac itself. The vac itself sits approximately 10 inches off the center line above the hose reel. So off the center line about 10 inches puts us up to about here. Now you can see this wire here. You'd be like, wow, why is that wire just hanging out on the wall like that? That's the low voltage wire that goes into the back of the vac, which will be controlled by a switch box over here. So I'll be standing here reeling, and then when I'm done, I just turn the vac on and off right from this location here, which is going to be awesome. And then we come up, and off of that center line, you're going to see I have a 2x6 turned sideways. And in order to make this super stout, I did a cross blocking and a vertical blocking, pounded it all in. And man, I'm telling you right now, you could hammer on that till your hands fall off. That thing is rock solid. And that gives us plenty of wiggle room for this center mount on the vacuum. I can go either direction several inches, up and down a ton. That gives me that max amount of flexibility that I'm gonna want when I'm fine tuning those measurements once I have the drywall in and I'm trying to line everything up. Now again, we got here a 20 amp dedicated service for this particular vac, 20 amp breaker, 12-2 wire, only one thing on this service. Now, I tried to do another one where this would be an invisible plug. You can see, you would say, oh, well, why not go dead center? Because the vac sits so close to the wall, I wouldn't be able to get the plug in and out. So I had to cheat outward a little bit to make room for the plug. And I got a feeling that it's gonna be hidden. If anything, a little smidge might stick out, but it's going to be pretty hidden back there, and that's what I wanted. Because again, I'm going to be controlling the on and off over here. Has nothing to do with the plug. So all in all, that's pretty much takes care of the pressure washer and the vac hose reel, and I got all the latitude in the world. Don't be chintzy with your blocking. Again, make sure there's plenty. If you're unsure about the measurements, block further out. Once you got the wall open, you might as well do it right, and make sure it's strong. If you feel like it's weak, man, redo it or do it better. That's all I can say on that. I know that it's relatively easy. Most people can do it. But for some people that don't have the tools, don't have the skills, you might want to consider hiring somebody, and we need to make sure that that person you're hiring knows what the hell they're doing too. So I'll take care of you over on my website, check it out. So after some careful consideration, I've decided to come back and put some additional blocking in here and kind of change the way I did this, because I got a new shelf that I want to try out, and I felt like if I do another 2x6 and a 2x4, I'll be able to have some versatility to play with different equipment in the future. So I wanted the max amount of blocking. It's just going to give me way more options. The concept's the same. I just got a little bit more breathing room on the top end to try out this new shelf I'm going to try out. Hopefully it works out killer, and that'll be sick. And you can also see here I've went ahead and I've kind of darkened all the lines with Sharpie, but I've measured everything so that once we button this wall up and it all disappears, I'm gonna be able to open up that picture and tell exactly the top of this board is at 62.5 inches and so forth. So that's gonna be awesome. So that's why the difference is here. I rolled this on the side because I kind of feel like the plug laying on its side is just gonna be a little bit better, more concealed fit. Now that we've done all that, we're happy. It's time to bury all the hard work, put the drywall up, get this thing primed, get it painted, and let's get this project moving forward. I went ahead and hung the first piece of drywall. The box is cut out, the plumbing stub outs are all in place. It's going pretty good. I'm by no means a drywall professional. I can hang it, I can finish it, I can paint it, and it looks pretty good when I'm done. But this is not a drywall tutorial. But I did want to mention one thing before I continue on. It's very nice to have all the boxes and plenty of outlets and all these different things, but they definitely complicate the drywall job for sure, making a lot more intricate cutouts and stuff that's gonna, you know, make the job a little longer, a little harder. I think it's worth it myself. But you might want to consider how many outlets you have. You're going to have to cut them all out. I think it's a very small price to pay though. But I'm going to go ahead and finish the drywall job on across the shop. I kind of, you know, drywall is kind of dusty, kind of messy. And I'm in a confined area here, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of filming. So let's check back in once we got all the drywall up. The drywall is complete, and I'll tell you what, it went pretty darn good. It actually went really darn good. I'm excited about it. It only took a few hours, got the whole wall done. I wanted to talk about a few tips that I just kind of realized are worth sharing with you guys along the way. Now again, I'm not a professional drywaller. If you are a professional drywaller, maybe you can chime in with some tips too. But some of the things I find when you're single-handing drywall, a proper drywall screw gun like this is perfect. It comes with about 20 per strip here. You can single hand this, hold the drywall, and boom, 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 just like a machine gun. And you know, you can work single-handed a lot easier. So this is key. Plus it makes screwing it onto the wall just an absolute breeze. Another cool one is this multi-tool. Man, this thing comes in great when you got to cut some molding or any type of cutting you have to do that would normally be really difficult to get a tool in there and get it done. This is going to save you for sure. Now, what makes drywall go really well? I would say that first and foremost, when you're looking at your studs, you want to be able to run a nice 6-foot level down there, and this thing shouldn't be wonky and all over the place. If this thing is wonky and your studs are all over the place, it's going to make hanging it tough, and it's going to make finishing it even tougher. Now, so make sure when you're when you're doing your studs, you put a nice 6-foot level on it and make sure it's reasonable. Perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect. Reasonable is the key. Another thing that's kind of helpful is all the electrical boxes. When you have a lot of electrical boxes, it can be a real nightmare. So what I did was I put the drywall up, partially sank a few screws to hold it in place, and then I was going to cut the boxes out after the fact. Now before I put the drywall up, I measured over and I put some lines here to indicate where the box was. So in this case, it was 5 5/8 to this edge and 8 to this edge. So then I come over with my drywall knife. I like to use this one right here. Once I found my center, I just worked my way over, worked my way up in all directions, being careful not to cut my wires to bits on the inside. And then I just took a razor knife and went around. And you end up with those really nice, clean drywall jobs around your boxes. Now what happens is if you run out here wild and do something crazy, you got to come back with mud and try to make that look nice. And anybody that's ever done this before can tell you, it's really hard to make that look good after the fact. It just requires a lot of mudding and a lot of sanding. So take your time on these. Now would I do that method in a 3,600 square foot house with 1,100 plugs? No, probably not. There's probably a better way. And if you're a professional drywaller, I'm sure you're probably using a RotoZip or something of that nature. But for the person that's just doing their garage, lay it out nice, translate it over here, cut it out. Once you get the boxes cut out, the drywall should comfortably go against the wall, and then we screw it down. So I'm gonna show you now drywall finishing. I'm not gonna show you the whole process. If I have a couple tips that I think are worth sharing with you to help you along, I'll do that, but otherwise, I'll see you after the finishing's done. Ooh, that was risky, yeah. So today, all in all, I hung all the drywall, got 2 coats on the screw holes, 1 on the joints, and it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna leave it set overnight because we want this, you can still see here that the joints are still wet. I want that super dry so that the next coat I come on, I'm not pulling the tape up and other stuff. But I thought of a few tips that might be helpful for you guys out there that wanna do the job yourself. When you're doing the drywall finishing, keep in mind, start with the small knife. We'll talk about the screw holes first. We'll just do a coat, knock it down completely flat, nothing lifted up. Make sure you get all of it off. After that dries, you're gonna see that it's settled in down inside the screw hole, leaving a depression. That's all right. We'll come back behind. I'm gonna do a second pass with the same knife, and I'm gonna go a little wider this time. I'm gonna get the screw hole, but I'm gonna go out further. Think about this, drywall is all about spreading the problem out over a longer distance so that you can't see it. There's nothing perfect about drywall. You can do pretty good, but even when you have the slightest little bit of elevation difference, we want to taper it over a long distance. Now I want to tell you about the joints. This is kind of important too. The first pass I did the small knife, laid a coat of mud down to get the tape to stick, kind of knocked everything down that was high. You can see a little bit of high stuff here. I'm gonna scrape that off tomorrow. I just don't want to interfere with the tape right now until it completely dries. The next thing I'm gonna do is come back with my next width knife, and I'm gonna go a little wider, and you can see that actually goes at least 2-3 inches over the old one. And I might even 50-50 it and spread it out wider depending on how it's going down. I'll let that dry overnight because that's gonna be a little bit more mud on there. And again, remember, more coats, thinner coats is better than thick coats and a lot of sanding. If we do this right, we should only have to sand a tiny bit at the very end just to get it perfect. We shouldn't be knocking down any high spots during the finishing work. Now we're gonna come back after that and hit it with the wide knife, and you can see that this is really gonna taper it down. I'll probably do a 50, and then knock down the middle, and that should draw the tape joint out to about here, and that's just gonna make it really nice, because the last thing we want is to be looking down the side of this thing and it's looking like a set rolling in at sunset. That's that's not really what we're going for. We're going for nice smoothness. And even if it's, your joints aren't perfect, when you kind of spread that mess out further in a nice taper, you're gonna see that it's almost not noticeable. So the next time I check in, hopefully I'll have the finish work done and we'll be getting ready to prime and paint. It's going quick. Hopefully, another day or two, we're gonna be looking at throwing some stuff on the wall. That's gonna be sick, I can't wait. I got it laying everywhere here. It's time to get it up there. All right, let's do it. All right, so we wrapped up that drywall and we got a good solid coat of primer on there, and I'll tell you what, it looks pretty sweet. As a matter of fact, you like apples? How you liking those apples? But anyway, we got the primer on there, and I'll tell you what, I'm looking down the side. This is where if I had any major problems, I would address it, but for a garage, this is freaking impeccable, so I'm really stoked on it. I see a couple little blemishes, but I'm not gonna go after them and start digging. I'm good to go. So now we're gonna put that coat of gray on there, and yes, I know you're looking, I am sweating like a damn pig. And the reason that is because I got the garage door open, that sun is hammering down. That's why all those insulation videos and mini split ACs, it's mandatory here. Without it, it's hot, man. So I'm kind of looking forward to, I got all the paint smell getting out of here. We get that coat of gray on there. It's time to start putting things back on the wall. And that's what I'm really excited about. Hope you are too. And with no further delay, let's get this thing painted up and get this sweat off my head. So that right there might be one of the best drywall jobs I have ever done. It looks absolutely amazing. No ripples, no buckles, no unsanded spots. It just looks absolutely perfect. Is that necessary for a garage? For me it is. For most people, they slop it up, throw some flat paint on it and call it a day, figuring that they're gonna bury it, who's gonna see it. But man, I wanted it to be awesome. So I put the work in, did it right, got all the electrical covers covered, everything's hot, got the plumbing in. The fixtures here are just kind of setting in here. I still have to Teflon tape those. We'll do that later. But next is getting everything that we've put on the floor, did all the layout on the floor. I got the layout also on the computer. That's gonna make things really easy. But it's time to put that on the wall and get everything up there and get it running. That's my favorite part. That's the part that we all look forward to, but all this prep was necessary. It took a while too. When I first started it, if I would have probably stopped and thought about it, I wouldn't have wanted to do all that. But once I got going, it's like, I gotta do it right. Ended up tearing everything down and doing it the best that I possibly could. I suggest you do the same. Why not? It's your place. You're gonna wanna do it right. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed part 1 of my series of remodeling my whole side of my garage here, all the important stuff anyway. Man, this is the heart and soul of every garage. You gotta have some tools too, but man, when I come out to the garage, I'm looking at this stuff and I like it a lot. But we'll come back with the next part in the series on the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Leave any comments. Tell me what you think. I always appreciate it. And so far, this install is going great. Yeah, I'm digging it. We'll see you on the next one.